Hello, and welcome back to another episode of To Whom It May Concern. I'm your host Malak, here with my co-hosts Khuwaila, Inara, and Mariam.
Hey,
Hi.
Hello.
So our topic today, I feel like, has a little bit of irony in it because we're in a time where everyone's on social media and we have so many followers and people are YouTubers and they have so many viewers and generally people have such a big group of friends, and now we see even apps like TikTok where people are dancing together between Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, whatever it may be that you're on. Yet we find such a great number of people today feeling lonely. What are your kind of thoughts on loneliness or people feeling lonely, or how we could have such masses and followers but still find ourselves being alone?
I think we need to distinguish between being alone and then the feeling of loneliness.
So one, you're just physically alone where no one is present around you. And the other is just that feeling of loneliness. So even if you are surrounded by people, you still feel like you are alone.
Yeah, and on the flip side, you can be alone and perfectly fine with that. Like, you don't necessarily have to feel loneliness every time you're by yourself. I think loneliness is more like an overwhelming emotion.
Yeah, like I know for me, when I want to be alone, it's because I want to re-energize. It's like constantly, doing work, school, internship, being constantly out. I need that time to like rejuvenate and like re-energize. So that's like my introversion self that needs to be alone. And just because I'm alone, it doesn't mean I'm lonely. It's actually a time where I'm re-energizing. I'm probably like getting myself back together and in place to be ready again for like the world.
It's like taking a lifetime out.
Or they call it me time.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfectly normal, and honestly, you need it sometimes.
Every time I think of the difference, I think of that Titanic scene when Rose is in a room full of people at the ballroom and she's like, I've never felt so alone in my life. And that's, I think, the first time when I was like, oh yeah, relatable.
So you're feeling lonely at that time?
No, just in the sense where if you don't feel a connect with somebody, that it doesn't matter how many people are surrounding you, you'll still have that feeling of loneliness, that feeling of isolation.
And I don't think loneliness, I don't think it just comes out of nowhere. I think loneliness is a cause itself. I think it's a symptom of an underlying cause. I think loneliness almost always means that there's something else going on, or there may be something bigger that you need help with.
So are you trying to say that if you're lonely, you're always in a state, like you always feel that loneliness? Or is it just dependent on the setting?
There are actually different types of loneliness. Researchers at Crisis Text Line categorize them into 3 different types. So there's situational loneliness, which occurs when there are changes in your life that make you feel isolated. So like maybe you're starting a new school, you're moved away from family and friends, you have a change in your schedule. So these are like situational cases. And then there's developmental loneliness, where it feels like everybody else in life is moving forward and you're kind of still back. They're acing tests, they're getting promoted, and you're still kind of like stagnant. And so you feel like everybody's moving forward, but you're still behind. And so those situations could also make you feel alone. And then I feel like this is the one that we're mainly speaking about, which is internal loneliness. And this is when you're out with friends, but you still feel like you're alone. Like you can't really connect with people like you used to. You still feel like you can't relate. And so this one is more of your perception of being alone, even though you're not literally alone. Like you feel lonely, but you're not alone.
I think something else that can also kind of play a hand in this is, I think oftentimes we don't fully understand what the word loneliness means, and sometimes we just kind of claim anything is loneliness.
What do you mean?
I feel like this generation that's being raised right now, or even my generation, honestly, we constantly feel like we have to be around people, or we have to be a part of something, or we constantly have to be have some type of stimulation, and if we don't, we feel so hard. We're overly emotional, I feel like, sometimes. So if you're just not part of a group for an hour or two or something, you're suddenly feeling so lonely. I don't think we fully understand the concept of loneliness either sometimes.
Or it's not that we don't understand the concept of loneliness, it's that we feel we don't know how to be by ourselves.
Yeah,
we're so
that's
dependent
true.
on
Yeah,
each other.
That's true. We're always taught about these relationships that you should have, with your family or with friends or with a significant other. And when you don't have those relationships too, you're always constantly feeling like, oh my God, I'm so alone. Oh my God, something's not right. Oh my God. So I feel like we're also brought up to have a certain perception of what we should be like in terms of our relationships and the people we're around. And as soon as we're not in accordance to that, we also feel like we're falling apart or like there's no hope. And I think that's where loneliness kind of
Well, I think that's temporary though. Those like feelings, if you're like constantly being stimulated or feeling the need to always be with somebody, I feel like those periods of loneliness is temporary.
But
I feel
that's
like
what
people.
I was trying to get at that before, because like it's when you're talking about that feeling of being lonely, is it that constant state of loneliness, or is it like, okay, at this moment in time I'm feeling lonely for that hour, but then I go home and I see my family and I'm fine, and then I go to a party that I don't know anyone and then I'm feeling lonely there? Like, is it that back and forth?
But that's why I don't feel like that. For me, my definition of loneliness, or the way I think loneliness is, I associate it with a long-term type of feeling. Like, I don't think you just not being with people for an hour should be considered like loneliness.
But I feel like that's depression, not loneliness.
I think it could lead to depression.
Yeah.
I don't think it necessarily
starts as depression.
At depression.
But like I was saying earlier, also, I think loneliness is usually a symptom of something underlying.
So what do you mean underlying? Like,
there's a reason, there's causes for loneliness.
So depression?
No, I think like sometimes deeper things, like let's say, you know, you're going through this hardship and you feel like you lost a loved one and you feel like nobody else can relate or connect with you because they haven't experienced that. So you're in this, like, you feel alone, you feel like nobody could understand what you're going through. So you tend to get more isolated and you feel alone because you can't share that with anybody, or if you do, nobody really understands what you're really experiencing. So I feel like sometimes it's the hardships that we go through in life that we feel like we can't connect with people at that because they're not also experiencing the same thing.
And then you never fully bounce back from it or something because you've never allowed yourself to talk about it or to get over it or to connect with someone.
I think as a society, we perpetuate our own loneliness because we have a fear of being vulnerable with one another. And because we have that fear of being vulnerable, we constantly think that we're not being understood by other people. And then we isolate ourselves slowly and surely because we think we can't connect. But in some situations, we're just not allowing ourselves to connect.
And I think that goes to, one, the fear of being vulnerable. Like, how is somebody going to view me? Are they going to look at me differently because I'm going through this? Or are they going to perceive me as somebody who's weak? And then, two, I would add on, there's a fear of trust. Like, can I confide in people? Will they keep what I'm going through personal? Like, are they not going to share this with the other people? Am I going to be judged? So it's that fear of, like, not only being vulnerable, but that trust is usually lacking. A lot of people have a fear of not being able to trust somebody with their personal issues or what they're going through.
I think that the times when we do try to come out of our loneliness, or when we try to figure out a solution for why we're feeling this way, we tend to turn to the things that won't realistically help you. Like, I'm feeling lonely, oh, let me go upload a new photo on Instagram or something. Or I'm feeling lonely, let me make friends on the internet. We grasp at things that aren't actual solutions to your loneliness. And when we also don't get it from there, then it's like another blow. Like, okay, that didn't even work out. Now there's something maybe really wrong with me. Or
so then that kind of goes back to how our relationships are, in that we don't establish strong relationships with one another. One where we can actually have that trust and have that feeling of okay being vulnerable with that person.
And I find that that's why a lot of famous people usually, leads them to suicide, because although they have millions of followers or they have so much money, these are the things that we think will make us feel apart or will make us feel whole. And oftentimes when we don't attain it, we think we'll never get past the loneliness. But we find that actors and actresses and whatnot have all of this and still find themselves lonely or depressed. You know what I'm saying?
And honestly, releasing some of that fear and being open with someone feels so liberating. Like when you're like, oh, I thought I was going to be judged, but it was such a great experience. I mean, it's horrible if it doesn't turn out to be a great experience.
I think it just depends on who you're opening up to.
Right, so it's about finding those people that you feel like you could trust and like connect with, usually like close family and friends that you can like if you're feeling lonely to be able to open up to them and share with them. And I feel like usually people tend to like respect that and are more supportive than we think, and more understanding, and are more willing to be there for you. I also think society overall, like the media, especially for women nowadays, it's like you have to be independent and strong. And so it's kind of like removing that wanting to be more emotional or vulnerable, and that kind of makes us look weak. So I feel like in the media we're supposed to be these like hardcore women and like fighters and strong, and it's like, but even like this part of us where we go through these emotional cycles, or we do feel sad and lonely, and it's kind of like looked at negatively in the light of the media. So even though these are normal feelings, so I feel like that also further isolates us and makes us think that there's something wrong with me. But even though those temporary loneliness is totally normal, it's not uncommon for people to experience that.
So do you guys have a time in your life where you kind of felt lonely?
When I first moved out, I lived in Indianapolis for 3 years. In the first, I would say 6 months, like I had a roommate, but I just felt completely alone because I still was getting to know her. And this is the first time moving out without my family. So it was just like a completely different experience where I didn't have like my outlet, where I didn't have like I don't know, just my family, friends, my normal surroundings. So I definitely felt alone at that time.
And you come from such a big family.
Yeah, so it was weird. It went from like a big family to only one roommate that was still very awkward. And it takes a while for me to like adjust to different people and like connect with people.
What did you do during that time to help you?
I mean, so I was very busy studying in general, but whenever it would like be really, really bad, I just thank God for FaceTime. I'd FaceTime my family and it would help my mood a lot.
Right, you would try to reconnect with your family and just give a phone call. And I think that's a great way to, like, for anybody who is like, needing to move because of school or career, or maybe recently getting married and moving out of state from family. I think, alhamdulillah, for phones and technology, because now you could connect with them in
I don't know how they used to do it before. Like, they would just, like, send letters that would take forever.
That's so cute. I love letters. But, yeah, not the link. I want it Prime. Like, Expedia.
Amazon Prime. No, but, like, yeah, it would get really lonely.
My feeling of loneliness is more like the third category Inada described, where it was more of, like, a perception of being alone than actually being alone. So when my grandma passed away, I was going through, like, a lot of emotions. And for some reason, I was like, I'm the only one going through these emotions, even though obviously I had my whole family that was probably feeling the same thing. And it wasn't more like I was the only one feeling it, actually. It was like I didn't want anyone else to know that I was feeling as hard as I was, because I wanted to be like the strength for the other people that wanted to talk about it. So I didn't want to talk about it as much. But in that, I began isolating myself in my own emotions and then feeling like no one understood me. So I was going through maybe not long periods. It was more like there were just intense bursts of feelings of loneliness. But those intense bursts like made me go down for like hours and hours, you know? So alhamdulillah, obviously you understand that that's not the case, and you grow and you talk to people and you realize that you should express your emotions. But at that time, I was really bad. So I think when you go through something that's overly emotional and you suppress it all, that can lead to a feeling of intense loneliness.
And it's harder with that situation because, first of all, you're losing a loved one, and it's like your entire family that has also lost it. So it's just like it's harder for you guys to confide in one another.
Because you don't want to bring them down as well. You're like, they look like they're doing fine, so I'm not going to go in try and make them sad. Or they're already sad. Why would I want to burden them?
Yeah, or make it about you, and it's about that feeling for that person that was lost. It makes it a lot more difficult, for sure.
So when you found yourself, Mariam, when you were like really low, or even during that whole duration where you were feeling lonely or isolated, what were some things that kind of helped you get over it in the end?
Well, something that really helped was going back into God, honestly. Like, I know people say it and it's hard to do, but like turning to God and unburdening to him and knowing that he will help me made me feel a lot better. And then after that was realizing that you can talk to people and that people will communicate back to you and they won't judge you and they won't feel like you're a burden to listen to. So I think getting over that hurdle was really helpful.
Yeah, I definitely think that for if you're ever feeling lonely or you have that sense of loneliness, one of the first things is to find somebody that you can talk to. And whether, like you said, Mariam, for you it was God, so you were able to turn around and you were able to pray and whatnot. But for those that struggle with religion or aren't there yet, I think it's definitely important to kind of seek out somebody that you can trust, or somebody that you have, like somebody that you can unload on and they won't mind. And I mean, if you don't have that, I know in order there's other outlets that you can kind of turn to.
I mean, one resource that I personally think is great because I've worked with them, I think Crisis Text Line is a good way to, if you're going through that hot moment where you feel very alone, text Crisis Text Line at 741-741. And you'll have somebody who is like willing to listen and willing to support you and help you through what you're going through. So if you're feeling at your ultimate low, definitely reach out to somebody, or, Crisis Text Line, or even sometimes like online support groups. So like, there's, I'm pretty sure, grief circles and stuff like that you could find either in your local community or online community to help you through that, or other people who experience the same thing that are willing to share and hear you out. Crisis Text Line, if you go on their online website, actually have a list of resources. So you could go through like grief and it'll have something listed, or if you're going through like issues with relationships or stressors, they have a lot of really good resources. So definitely go to their website and see like what is out there, so you could feel that support that you need.
On another kind of tidbit, it's like, it's really brave for people to show their emotions, and you don't know how many people can feel with you or feel relatable when you share those emotions, and then they'll also feel empowered to open up to other people. So I know we're often really scared to do that, but your bravery also will encourage others to also
Have you done that though?
what?
Like opened up to someone?
Yeah, all the time now.
Now you're okay.
Now people are like, okay, close.
That's enough, Mariam.
Yeah, honestly, I find that very hard for me to just like open up to people. I like to have that like stronger appearance where like nothing bothers me.
It is.
So even if something is bothering me, I like to just bottle it up.
Yeah, and sometimes it just depends on what it is. Because I know I've experienced something, it was like a hardship in my life where I was like, okay, like nobody's gonna get this. It's, it's probably silly, but it's like really overwhelming me. And I was afraid of like sharing it with other people because how are they gonna perceive me? Or are they gonna I was actually a fear. I didn't want them to also
For it to affect them.
I didn't want it to affect them. So I not only wanted to one, it was difficult to just be vulnerable, but two, I also didn't want anybody to be affected by it. Because I was like, I don't want anybody to feel a certain type of way. But the more it got really bad, where you could tell, okay, Nada, something's up, my close people were like, okay, Nada, something's wrong, what's going on? And so then once I opened up and talked, I was like, oh, it's not that bad. I was able to get that support, and they weren't affected by it. That I thought how they would be. And then the more I shared about it, the more people were like, oh yeah, we experience that all the time. So it was really interesting.
Yeah. Whenever we keep it inside of our heads, it's a lot more dramatic. And then when we verbalize it out loud, we're like, oh, okay.
Because in your head, you think of worst case scenarios, this could happen, then this could happen, then they'll be affected like this.
Or just your emotion about that one thing is just oh my God, I feel so strongly about this way.
It's overwhelming a little bit.
Yeah, and then when you say it out loud, oh, it's actually not that bad, or or it's actually normalized because a whole bunch of people are feeling that way too.
It sets off a domino effect of everybody being like, yeah, me too. And that's why I said it gives you a feeling of liberation, because you're like, wow, this weight is now lifted off of me. Everybody feels this way too. Everybody feels lonely and sad or happy or fearful.
And I wanted to say, I also think that something else we should kind of take into consideration is to recognize the severity of your situations. Some things are actually you're really at your low point and you're feeling really lonely. And at other times it's kind of just being confident in yourself enough to be oh, I can be alone for this. Oh, I don't need anybody surrounding me at all times, And that's something we all kind of go through. I think today we're constantly surrounded by people, and we need to realize that be confident in yourself that no, there's nothing wrong with you because you're taking a step back, or there's nothing wrong with taking a break and not sharing every detail of your life. Don't be over emotional when a situation doesn't call for it. Recognize that this is perfectly normal. And like you guys said, I think that comes from vocalizing it. Once you say it out loud, you're oh, well, I don't know why I even thought that was such a big deal. Be able to give yourself that opportunity.
And people need to be okay with being alone. Feel comfort in being alone by themselves and thrive in that. I was reading this one quote, and it said, if you treated other people the way you treat yourself, would you still have any friends? Because it's literally you don't take yourself out. You constantly bombard yourself with negative thoughts, and you treat yourself bad. So why do you do that? You need to treat yourself in the best possible way. And that's why I'm a big promoter of like, take yourself out to eat, do something that you enjoy by yourself, or take long walks. Like, be okay and comfortable with being alone.
And that'll strengthen like your own personality, your own confidence. It'll give you that chance for like self-reflection.
I think a major aspect of loneliness is also not feeling a purpose, or like you have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's very detrimental, honestly, to a person, and that's where loneliness can stem from. Because as soon as you feel useless, you literally feel like you don't belong anywhere with anyone.
Or like, what's the point?
Yeah,
Like you start going down that mindset.
exactly,
and that-
exactly. So I think if that's the root of your loneliness, or if that's the cause of your loneliness, you really kind of have to sit down and just, I don't know, like map out why you're here, or
Yeah.
why you're doing what you're doing, or something.
Right, finding meaning and purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to like perception, like our thoughts play such a huge role,
Mhm.
which is like what Mariam was saying about like be your own basically best friend, like how you would treat your friend, treat yourself that way. Like it goes back to like our thoughts, like why are we constantly like saying negative things or that negative self-talk? So loneliness, I would say, also stems from our personal thoughts about ourselves. So like rewiring our way of thinking so that it's more positive, it's more optimistic, to continue to be more positive.
It's such an interesting way of looking at it, though. Like if we treated our friends the way we treat ourselves.
It's
Yep.
usually treat people the way you want to be treated. That's like a
Well,
twist
one
on
But
it.
our inner
treated-
thoughts are different.
Want to be treated is different than the way we treat ourselves. So
Yeah.
that's like an interesting way of thinking about it.
Yeah. It's funny that Mariam says that, because it's true. Anytime you say, like, or somebody says, oh, I'm going to go eat by myself or something, everybody's kind of like, what? Like,
Wow.
what are you going to do for 30 minutes?
No, I can't do it. I can't.
I've said that too. Like I don't think I can go out to eat by myself. I'll bring food home.
Yeah, I was going to say, or I'll eat in the car on my way home, but I don't think I go to a restaurant, sit down, and, like,
I
Yeah.
did. The waitress has definitely judged me. But
But like when I see people doing that, I'm like, good for you.
or my automatic assumption is, oh, they're on lunch break or something. Like, I automatically assume they have, like, 20 minutes to eat and go back. I don't know.
Mhm. I don't-
Yeah, I can't do that. But for me, like those like outside social situations make me feel uncomfortable to be alone. So like I prefer like I don't mind being alone.
But no, you don't
Like,
want
I
to be
don't-
perceived like you're a lonely person.
Oh, maybe, but not. I don't. But no, like I genuinely won't enjoy that. Like I feel like my mind will just maybe be worried about what are people thinking
Like,
of me
oh,
or how
I look like a loser by myself.
Yeah, probably that negative self-talk. But like I won't enjoy it. Like for me, eating a lot of
It's a
times is like
social.
more of like a social thing, or even like going to a movie. It's usually the experience with that somebody
Yeah,
else because I like
I
quality
agree.
time. So usually it's that.
It's like catching up or
Yeah, like
talking
if I
or
want to be
discussing ideas.
alone, I don't mind being alone. Like I do that a lot. Like I love being alone
In your
in
room,
my
though.
room. Yeah, because I like to do what I'm
But
doing
that's-
and what I enjoy doing. and
That's
stuff.
different than like taking a walk by yourself or going out to eat by yourself.
no, I like doing that stuff by myself. And it's funny when I say that, some people are offended. They're like, what, you'd rather go be by yourself than invite me out to eat with you? And I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah.
sometimes.
I was like, it's not about you. It's just I genuinely enjoy it.
Yeah, more like Nora, I think. If I want to be alone, it's gonna be like alone, like in my bedroom or doing homework or something. Like I've gone running before by myself, and it just
Oh, when I
got
work
so
out.
bored.
When I work out, I have to be alone. I hate working out with people.
Oh my
No, on the
God, I love
treadmill,
having a buddy.
If you're on the treadmill, then I get it, because like you guys aren't doing anything anyways. But I was like at the pavilion running outside, and I got so bored. I literally went off around a few times. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna go home.
I'm done with
It's
this.
not a good time. I don't know how people enjoy
I don't
this.
mind like walking alone. Like sometimes walking from the campus I'm in to work is like a good 20 minutes. So I'll do that. But for me, it's like a good time to like think and like
Yeah.
get my exercise in. Like I don't mind it because I'm a thinker, so my head's constantly like wanting to reflect and think and just like question my life, right? But then with like outside social situations, literally things where I feel like you need a buddy, I prefer having a buddy.
I feel like the more common thing of being alone is the situational one, though.
Mhm.
At least for me. So, like, when I'm at work and, yeah, I'm surrounded by people that are doing the same job as me, but I still feel like I don't connect that well with them. Even, like, I'm very cordial, we're very nice, we're cool while we're at work, but then I'll see, like, a lot of them will hang out outside of work and I'm not there, so I haven't connected at that level. So it's like I feel kind of left out when I know about that whole like FOMO stuff. But
It's very like surface level connection.
exactly. And when I realize that, then I'll feel like lonely at that time. But then it's like I don't mind it as much because I have my friends and family that am very connected to anyway. So it's like I don't really care.
It's
But
just in that moment.
It's that situational, like in that moment, or like when I'm at work. But then I'm I'm not there all the time.
I think one of the worst feelings is feeling lonely at work because we spend so much of our life there and our time there.
But it makes the workday not as fun as it could be.
Yeah, I was gonna say it just feels like it drags more when you're not talking to anybody or you're maybe taking your breaks alone.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I don't mind being alone, but then because I have like a desk job, right? But it does feel a lot better, and time does fly more when you are socializing.
Yeah.
So like I had this new coworker that came, and because before I was just doing my thing, doing my job, whatever, like the day dragged, but it was whatever. And then this new coworker comes, and she's all about like letting everybody come out, and like she's very extroverted and like wanting to form like teams and getting everybody behind their desks to like come together and stuff. So like talking with her, she got me to be more extroverted and stuff. So like when I'm at work, she's like, Inara, I thought you were like, I'm like, no, really, I'm an introvert. And she's like, no, Inara, you're an extrovert. I was like, no, but your personality, your energy, like bounces back on me, and then you give me that comfort to like be more outgoing and more talkative with like my other coworkers. But before that, nobody really wanted to talk, but it was that one person who was like, oh my god, this is so depressing, I can't handle it, that one extrovert that needs everyone to connect. And so she brought us all together, and now it's like more enjoyable when I'm at work. So it does make a difference, but it's not that I minded it, because I'm still like, I don't mind working alone or just be like, I actually enjoyed eating lunch alone. That sounds so sad, but like for me it was perfect. I get to like watch a YouTube video, like
you're doing your own thing.
Yeah, and I love, like, I get to think, I get to process, like it was really fun. But even though it sounds sad, but I actually enjoyed it. I was like in my office, I was like, yes, finally close the door, like let's like get me, you know what I mean? I really enjoyed
Lunchtime.
Well, is it just the lunchtime, or how about the rest of the day though? Because you said it dragged before.
Yeah, it dragged, but I never thought about it because I was feeling alone. I just was more like, oh, my job is very like boring.
I can feel what Inara was talking about, because I don't think I'm much of an introvert, but I don't think I'm necessarily an extrovert either. Like, I'll figure out how to be comfortable and how to steer my way through things. But when I was starting this master's program, I was really in the mindset where I was like, I came from a private high school, private undergrad. I have a good group of friends. Like, I'm not really here to make friends. I'm not looking to make friends with people. And then obviously you find a group regardless because, study habits and whatnot. But there was this one girl that I met, and she's just so, like, she's friends with everybody. She, like, she's part of the student senate, whatever. She's really outgoing. And then through her, I found myself meeting people that I never would have thought I needed to meet, talking to people in the hallway even when she's not there, because I met them through her, And it makes things more fun. I mean, it makes the time go by faster, and it feels like you're getting more out of what you're doing. But yeah, I don't think
it like
I ever
adds
would
to
have
the
done
experience.
Exactly, but I don't think it's anything I would have ever done by myself.
Well, that makes sense, because humans are social creatures. Like, it's actually proven by various studies that whether we are physically alone or we perceive ourselves as being alone, both of them are detrimental to our health. So, like, that makes sense that we have this need to be social beings, and that it makes, our day funner.
Yeah, you need to seek out relationships.
And that's actually a great way to help with loneliness. So actually talking to people that you encounter. So something as simple as like when you're ordering your Starbucks drink, or those little interactions make a huge difference in how you feel. So like just doing acts of kindness or trying to connect with people, like that will help with your loneliness. So
it's funny, for one of my MBA classes, I'm taking an improv class, and each week I know it, like,
that's a heart attack class.
It is.
Well, for you guys.
It's
for
so,
planners, oh my god.
It's so hard, but like it helps. Like they give like little tips on how to like for public speaking or for this or that and the other. But anyway, so like each week he assigns us a little project that we have to do, or a little experiment we have to do for that week, and then at the end of the week we write a reflection on how it was. So this past week we had to give like these one-liner icebreakers to strangers and kind of see how that works. And it wasn't intended to be like a long conversation. It was supposed to be like an icebreaker. You say a line and then you're like, okay, have a good day, and like you move on.
That's so awkward.
It is, and it was so hard for me to do it, and I barely did it. Like I was supposed to be to 50 strangers. I probably did it
50?
to like because that's how like we're supposed to practice and get in the habit.
What was
of
your
that.
line?
Just random stuff. But like it's interesting because it's so hard for people to do that, but like once you make that connection, the times that I did do it, it was so easy.
But going up to strangers randomly is really difficult.
No, but like right now you said at Starbucks, like the stranger in line just saying like, "Oh, how are you?" or cracking a joke or something like that. Like that.
It's fun, yeah.
I can't do that.
But I also want to clarify, I'm reading this book called Quiet, and this society is like meant to be like, you need to be extroverted, you need to go out in there and do this, and you need to be that. But like, you don't need to do that. And that's like, we live in a society where it's like, no, you need to raise your hand and constantly participate, or you need to be able to like think on your feet. It's like, no, but we're not all wired like this. There's a good amount of introverted people that need to think things through, that need to process that don't like small talk. And I feel like our society is constantly like, no, you need to be like going out there and all of that.
Yeah.
So yes, connecting with people, but you don't have to do it all the time. But if you're feeling lonely, like connecting with people who are close within your comfort level, that's healthy. But I feel like our society constantly is perpetuating being extroverted is the right way or the positive way. And I want to just, for my introverted friends, like, it's okay, guys. Like, we don't need to be that way all the time.
No, but I feel like it's not that being introverted is bad, but it's good skills to learn to know how to have small talk or to mingle with people at a Starbucks line or to just have these little things even though you don't like it or enjoy it. Yeah, because I don't like it either, but it is important to do it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you're saying that, Ghouleh, because even when I know, like, when you go about doing things like dental school interviews, for example, or med school interviews, they tell you that as soon as you get on campus of wherever you're interviewing, your interview starts. So that's whether you're saying hi and you're smiling at the security guards, whether you're walking in and you wave at the librarian, and even the points where they leave just the students in the room by themselves, let's say, and they have like half the group going to do interviews and half the group sitting there. They want to know that you're sitting there and you're making conversations with the people around you. So you're right. We do perpetuate that idea that you should be making relationships and you should be vocalizing opinions. But I think it's only in order to make sure that you're able to carry a conversation or you're able to make people feel comfortable, you know?
But it's not just because you don't do that stuff. It doesn't mean you can't carry a conversation. It doesn't mean that I can't mingle or talk. It doesn't mean I don't have these skills. It just, I don't enjoy it, or I don't feel like, for me, because connecting with people, like, yeah, at that level is good. Yes, you feel like well connected, but like I don't feel deeper than that. It's just like, oh, just like very basic, very brief. But I don't know, I just like don't feel always the need to do that, or like constantly like getting to know everybody, because I'm like, no, I'm happy with the people I know, and I'm pretty comfortable and I feel supported.
But when it comes to these interviews, they want people that are going to be part of this community,
and
they want to see your personality,
and even the professions.
But that is my personality, and they're not allowing that. So, and the lady talks about schools and how like they specifically, like Harvard, she was explaining, and how they model this like need for to be extroverted, and she was like, people who are introverted like have to play as if they're extroverted, but introverted people have like their own types of skill set that extroverted people don't have.
I think bringing it around full circle to, I guess, the sense of loneliness is that if you are feeling loneliness, regardless of you being an extrovert or an introvert, you shouldn't be afraid to try and make a connection with another human being, whether that be as simple as saying, you know, how are you? Have a good day. Like, those little connections when you are feeling loneliness can be extremely impactful.
So I think overall what we're trying to get to is it's really important to make sure that you implement self-care in your routine. You know, like, always take a step back, look at the situation, understand the reason, so that you never feel like you're at such a low point in your life where you can't bounce back, or you can't, you know, look to anybody for advice. Always make sure that there's somebody in your corner also that you can go to and kind of, you know, rationalize ideas with, and where you can really have a conversation with them and expect them to give you honest feedback. But thank you so much to everyone for tuning in and listening to this week's episode of To Whom It May Concern. Please continue to subscribe, like, and follow us on social media. Make sure you're also spreading the word on the Modern Skeptics. You know, if you know somebody that has long car rides and needs something to fill their time, then there's nothing better than 4 entertaining girls. We appreciate all the support we've been receiving so far, though. If you don't already follow us, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Modern Skeps. And also, we do post our full-length episodes on YouTube. So for whatever reason you don't have the podcast app, you could find us on YouTube at The Modern Skeptics. Please continue to tune in every week on Tuesday mornings. That's when we drop the newest episodes. And if you have any ideas you'd like us to discuss, please feel free to email us at modernskeptics@gmail.com. Sincerely, The Modern Skeptic. P.S. Nothing can bring you peace but yourself.